In this video, we will be looking at the themes that we can find in Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. In the previous video, we discussed the plot analysis of the novel, and we discussed it chapter by chapter, and the trauma and experiences of Oliver Twist, his journey from the countryside to the city of London, and the discovery of his inheritance, and at the end, the recovery of his inheritance. So, in this video, we'll be looking at the things that we can find in the novel. We have several themes, and we will be looking at them one after another. It is important that you subscribe to the channel so that you will get notified when other videos on Oliver Twist and other novels, plays, and poems are uploaded. Just click the notification bell also to get notified when a new video is uploaded. So we'll be looking at some of the themes, and the first one we will be looking at today is purity in a corrupt city. Yes, this is one of the themes in the novel Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Purity in a corrupt city. Who is pure and where is the corrupt city? No, Charles Dickens portrayed throughout the novel that the city of London was riddled with criminals and corruption. And we saw that Oliver, being a child, was a very pure and innocent child. While other people of his age were engaging in criminal activities, pickpocketing and stealing from people, Oliver was not accustomed to such character, to such behavior, even when he was forced by Dodger and his boss Virgin to engage in criminal activity of pickpocketing. Oliver could not do it. And when he saw that Dodger stole a handkerchief from Brownlow, he was so worried and he felt guilt of it, and that was why he was suspected to be the thief and thrown into jail before it was later discovered that he is not responsible for the missing handkerchief. So we also saw that by examining the fate of most of the characters, we can assume that his answer is that they do not. That is, the good character. Certainly, characters like Psyche, Fajim seem to have sustained permanent damage to their moral sensibilities. That is, they engage in corruption and happy engaging in acts that is immoral, that is amoral. So yet, even Psyche has a conscience which manifests itself in the apparition of a Nancy's eye that haunts him after he murdered Nancy. So Charlie Bates maintained enough of sense of decency to try to capture Psyche. So we saw that Oliver is a pure, incorrupt character in the city that is corrupt, in the city that is full of corrupt people. So Nancy, Virgin, Dodger, Bates, Psyche, and Torsby, Crackit, and several other criminals who revolve around the character of Oliver in the novel. So we saw most of all telling is Nancy, that is, though she considered herself lost almost beyond redemption, to end up making the ultimate sacrifice for a child she hardly knows, that is, making a sacrifice for Oliver that she hardly knows. Then let's look at another theme in the novel. We have the powerlessness of children. Yes, who are those powerless children in the play? We saw that one of them is Oliver Twist. Oliver is a very powerless child, and that was why Nancy, who is even a lady, captured him when he was running an errand for Bromlow and took him back to Fagin. He was locked up as a result of his powerlessness as a child in the house of Virgin. He was forced to follow the criminals to go and steal because of his powerlessness. So we saw that Oliver is continually reliant and overpowered by others, Mr. Humble, Fagicide, the mobs, and the people in the street, even Nancy. So although he works hard to survive, it is only because he is taken in by wealthy and powerful adult that he is able to escape the immoral and dangerous world into which he is bound. So he was able to escape the corruption because Brownlow and Rose were able to take good care of him. If not, Oliver would have been corrupt also because he will continually finding himself in a situation that demands that he needs to steal or pickpocket or do one criminal activity or the other to survive. Because if he is living in the house of a virgin, they will not be stealing and then feeding him with the proceeds. Rather, they will engage him to continue stealing, just the way they force him to accompany Bates and Dodger in their art of stealing and pickpocketing. So we see another one is the importance of upbringing. We saw that upbringing matters a lot. Most of the characters in the novel had bad upbringing. Nancy, Oliver, and even Bate and Dodger, who were also still young guys, we believe that as a result of their bad upbringing, they had um, bad lifestyle. And then in this scene also we saw that Charles Dickens just opposes the prostitute Nancy to an angelic and utterly perfect Rose. So Nancy's potential for goodness is clear, made so by her very presence there among other things. So but from youth she had been surrounded by liars and thieves and criminals, and that was why Nancy also engaged in criminal activity. He was recruited, he was initiated, he was put into such activity from when she was a teenager. So Rose too comes from a rather poor background, but from an early age she was raised by the kind and loving Mrs. Mayley, who also offered her all the resources she could desire. And so she became an example of the perfect female. So let's look at another one. We have the city versus countryside. Yes, in the novel, Charles Dickens just opposes city and country lifestyle. According to from the inference from the my inference from the novel, I believe that Charles Dickens was praising the countryside and believes that the people living in the countryside are pure and moral people, while the people in the city, most of them engage in criminal activities to survive and at the same time engage in ignorant behaviors that is dangerous and a threat to the coexistence of people in the city of London at that time. So it is in the city that Oliver is forced into immorality, while it is in the country that Oliver is able to recover his head, to get an education, to find peace and happiness, and to live morally. So we saw that Dickens repeatedly described the seediest part of London using wholly negative language, while in scenes of the country, even the poor are presented as clean and pleasant to be around. So let's look at another one, institutional cruelty. Now we have a lot of cruelty in the novel. The treatment of Oliver was a very cruel one, and at the same time, we saw that Dickens wrote the book allegedly in response to the Poor Law Amendment Act of 1934, which represented the government both passive and active cruelty to the poor and the helpless. So although institutions show both passive and active cruelty in Oliver Twist, active cruelty is more prevalent. So a move that served to exaggerate and thus satirize this cruelty and make it seem intentional. So, Oliver was wicked from when Oliver was treated badly from when he was in the house of Miss Connie. From there to the workhouse, to the house of Sowiberry, and then to the Virgin's house. So he found solace in Brownlow's and Rose houses. So we saw that almost every institution exhibit a form of cruelty in the novel. So in our subsequent video, we will be discussing the literary devices used in the novel, and also we'll be discussing the characters and the characterization. So make sure you subscribe so that you will be notified when other videos